What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jimmy James 59, and what I want to do here is take you through what is ostensibly a build order video, but I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. First thing I want to do is I want to show you the build that I'm interested in, which is really a lot more of a strategy, I would say, than a set build order, which I'll get into that here in a second. I want to show you it under controlled conditions, just kind of messing around here on Arabia, just in the skirmish mode. And then I want to show you a game where I was able to take this build and use it to achieve some success. Now, what exactly are we looking at today? Well, there have been a couple things going on in the AOE2 meta and in the scene that I really feel like was inspiration for this video. The first is that we're in a meta that's very fast paced, and that is something that plays a pretty big role in our build orders. Typically what you want to do is get up as fast as possible. And there's good reason for that, right? Anytime you can get up to the next age, you get a really nice power spike. Having said that though, one of the things that I've noticed is that population efficiency in the feudal age, I think, is really underrated. We tend to mainly think about population efficiency in the late game. Now, there's good reason for this. The late game is, because of the fact that our population is capped at 200 in games on the ladder, then if you can't add any more population, you need to make sure that population is a lot more efficient. But when it comes to population efficiency, that's also something that matters at other stages of the game as well. And I think it definitely matters in the feudal age because your economy is so small that usually you have a lot smaller armies. So it's the size of your economy rather than the population cap that is limiting your population, which of course is still growing, but it's growing on a long-term basis, right? But when you fight battles in feudal age, I mean, hey, you have to fight with the army you have. So there is a short-term dynamic that we have to consider. And so you can see in the game that there are a number of civilizations that derive a very high degree of strength from the fact that they can make population efficient units in the early game. The Romans, civilization that has come to mind because they have not free, but their infantry armor does double the effect, and that gives them a lot of power in the early game. They even did a build order video on that. And we can see with, say, civs like Koreans that get free archer armor, Malay that get free infantry armor, Magyars that get free forging, and even a civ like Turks that gets just an extra +1 pierce armor on their scout line. These bonuses, I think, are really important to those civilizations. And they got me thinking, are there any other civilizations in the game that we can utilize for a bit more population efficient units in the early game? And that got me thinking about the Burmese, which is the civilization that is the subject of this video. The Burmese are a really interesting civilization in that you get the wood upgrades for free, which means that you're not only getting that boost to your wood income a little bit sooner than everybody else, but you're also saving the resources on not having to research the wood upgrade. And that can be very important because that's 150 resources you're saving. That's very, very good. So, how can we take that and leverage that in order to have a more productive opening? And something I want to show you here, and this is just a generic 20 pop build. I've only lured in one deer. I've done this on the Eurasian Arabia here with the boars so that, we don't have the elephants that have more food. So you can do this on pretty much any Arabia, pretty much any open map. And we're going to open one lumber camp here And the plan is, what we want to do is get a stable up. We want to get a blacksmith up pretty early. And we want to either get forging or cavalry armor. Now, this build order is titled the Burmese Cavalry Armor Rush, because I think that a lot of times that's probably what you want to get on a scout, but there are situations where you might want to get forging instead. They cost the same, so it's basically the same thing. And you can see we're up. Very good time here, basically, you know, right on the money dark age. And look how much food we have, right? And we're going to get this stable up. And we're going to get horse collar. So again, because we don't have to get the wood upgrade, we're saving a lot of resources here. We're going to get this stable up. And essentially what you're wanting to do here is then send all your excess villagers. You want to send them to straggler trees, because we want to put down farms once we have the blacksmith. And you can see how much food we have. We're going ahead and we're queuing up some scouts. And what you typically want to do is queue up 2 scouts. And then we're going to get this blacksmith up. I like to make one house with 1 villager. And then as soon as you have the wood for the blacksmith, make it with another. And you can see we're getting the blacksmith, and boom, right? We have our armor upgrade. We're going to have 3 scouts, right? Because we have this guy hanging out here. We have our wood going. And you can see, right, our TC is not going idle, right? I remember we only lured in 1 deer for this build, right? So this build is something that is pretty powerful. You can use, boom, right? We're going to keep the TC running. We have wood for farms. I mean, at this point in the game, you are in a pretty darn good situation where we can just keep everything running. And now we have scouts that have +1 melee armor and +1 pierce armor. So what does this give us? Well, let me actually take you into a game I played on the ladder here pretty recently. Okay, so I want to show you what we can actually go ahead and do with this build. And the title of this video, of course, is the Burmese Cav Armor Rush. But, you know, you can also do this getting forging as well. And I'll talk about here in a sec why you might try and go for one or the other. Now, this is a team game. You can see that I'm as the Burmese up here in the northwest. My opponent is the Ethiopians in the southwest. In the northeast, my ally is also Ethiopians. And in the southeast, we have a Lithuanian player. Now, as you can see, right, we're going to go ahead. We're just doing the same build we did. And the cavalry armor here is really, really useful, because as you can see, right, our opponent is going to be coming forward and it's going with men-at-arms. And getting cavalry armor is going to do 2 things for us. It's going to lower the attack of these men-at-arms essentially by 1. So they're going to be 6 attack, lowered it to 5. That's about a 17% reduction in damage. And the same thing will be true for the scout. That'll be about a 20% reduction in damage. It's actually a really big deal. It's basically like, you know, there's 4 units in this army. It's almost like taking away sort of a unit in their army, so to speak. You know, because we're getting rid of essentially 4 damage, which is not bad at all. And you can see here, right, this attack really, really caught me by surprise. Usually in team games, you don't see a men-at-arms opening, but sometimes when in a 2v2, you're in the archer role and you're up against a scout player, opening men-at-arms is a really great way to put pressure on that scout player, right, and keep them from really getting their numbers going. And so, you know, really interesting move here. You know, putting the pressure on us, and we're really gonna have to, you know, get our ducks in a row here. As you can see, we are trying to keep our TC running, and we're gonna go ahead, right? We have 4 scouts right now, but there's 4 units here. Yeah, we have, you know, our armor, but we want to make sure that we are taking the fight that we want to take. So we're just gonna go ahead, queue up another scout, and make sure that we're taking smart fights. We're just gonna run away, because we have the armor here, and so we'll see what we can do. And you can see, right, our opponent is prepping archers behind this, but this is great because we remember with the archer armor, we have a melee armor, and we also have a pierce armor. So we're setting ourselves up not only to deal with this army here, but also to deal with the future army that our opponent's going to make. So we're going to see that in a second as well. But let's go ahead, take a look. We're going to zoom in here on this fight, right? Let's get everybody there. And you can see, right, we're taking this fight now, and it's a pretty darn good fight for us. In fact, we lose about a third of our HP, but our opponent lost all of his HP, which is very good, right? So that was a pretty nice fight that we were able to take. Now, of course, our opponent is coming forward with archers, with a spearman, and the great thing here is that we didn't lose any units. And not losing any units is really good because we want to make sure that we keep this army alive so that we can go ahead, we can fight, we can push out, because there's another army on our doorstep. And that matters quite a bit. And so now, right, as we continue to make scouts, that again, they're going to have armor as well, we can go ahead and we're going to take a fight here. And something I want to point out, right, is that, you know, we're only taking 1 damage off of the spearman, which is getting most of its damage from the bonus attack it does. And you can see there we did lose a scout that was pretty low HP, but we cleaned up a lot of our opponent's army, right, which is not bad. Let's go ahead here, take a look at the KD up to this point. We have an 8-3 KD on our opponent. Our opponent is now, right, kind of having to go back with those archers, right? Because again, we're able to just keep creating scouts. We're able to get our base pretty nice and walled up here. And we have a lot of army out in the field. Now, I mentioned earlier, right, when to get cav armor and when to maybe get forging, because at the same price, they're both 150 food and futilage. Well, I think the answer goes something like this. If you're up against another scout player, you might want to go ahead and get forging first and boost your attack, right? On the other hand, if you are in a situation where you're up against men-at-arms or archers, I'd recommend going ahead and getting the armor upgrade first. Now, getting the armor upgrade or attack doesn't matter quite as much, say, when you're playing scouts and you're up against another scout player, because again, you know, you're taking, 5 damage and making it 4, right? So, or, right, which is a good thing. That's a 20% reduction. Or if you go from 5 damage and give yourself 6 damage, well, then you're just increasing your damage production by 20%. But the real thing for scouts that it matters is that it helps you kill villagers to have forging. But you can see here that one of the advantages of having this early blacksmith is that it actually puts us in an advantage to where if we do want to get forging, we can just go ahead and get it and we don't have to wait for this blacksmith to come up. So this is a great position to put yourself in, whether you get forging or whether you get the first armor upgrade at that scale barding armor, I believe it's called. You can go ahead and get either one as you need. And basically, depending on the opening of the game, might depend on what you start off with. And you might decide to just wait on forging till later. But in a situation like this, right, where we have, a spearman, we have some archers, we want to go ahead and be able to take our opponent's army out. And what we're just doing right here is we're just waiting to get a few more scouts in the field. Because again, we want to take good fights. As we just kind of run away a little bit, we probably could have taken that fight there. But we wanted to wait for another scout. Now we have 10 scouts in the field, and now's the time to go ahead and take this. And let's just go ahead. All right, we zoom into this fight. And you can see, right, doing not such a bad job here. Remember, these are Ethiopian archers, so they are going to be doing quite a bit more damage because they have a faster attack rate. And yet, right, we're able to take that army down. And yeah, these archers are going to essentially be lost, right? And we have still a good number of scouts in the field, and our opponent is having to remake army. And that's the power of going ahead and getting this cav archer armor, right? We were able to fare much better against the men-at-arms, and we're able to fare much better against archers. You could see this at multiple points in the game. Having the blacksmith set ourselves up for where we decided, yeah, we need forging. Boom, let's just go ahead and get it. So it really does help you quite a bit as you are trying to decide what you need for your army. And as you can see, we're up to Castle Age, and we're in a pretty good position. I won't keep going with this game. As you probably can tell, it doesn't last that much longer. So we're in a pretty good position here. But yeah, that's the build. I think it could be really useful. And the last thing I'd say is I think there's other civilizations that you can do this similar strategy with. There's not a ton of them, but I will do builds in the future showing how you can exercise these abilities to get early blacksmith upgrades. So definitely be on the lookout for that in the future. That being said, guys, I'm James 59, and I'll see you out there in the ladder. Peace.